What's up, everybody? My name is Bethany Montgomery, but that's my given name, but my chosen name is Lyte because I am a warrior of light here to express, expose, and ignite. And welcome to Courageous Conversations, COVID-19 vaccine. You decide. This episode is episode number 4. Oh my gosh. Episode number 4. We only have one more episode left. So excited for today's episode. It is called How to Talk with Vaccine Shy Loved Ones and How to Address Their Concerns. So many of us are worried about friends, neighbors, family who are kind of, reluctant about getting the COVID-19 vaccine. And even those who have gotten the COVID-19 vaccine, because, there's a huge number of cases climbing, especially with this new Delta variant. And so how can we start a conversation and address concerns in a way that's caring, respectful, and constructive? So we've got a great lineup tonight with experts who can show us the way. These wonderful women, Black queens, have been leading outreach efforts in the Black community and other communities of color and underserved groups, and they'll share their experiences and their success stories so we can learn from them. So it's gonna be super exciting. So just a little bit about what Courageous Conversations is for those of you who are new. Courageous Conversations is a 5-part talk show series for Black and African American communities to receive culturally appropriate and accessible information about COVID-19 vaccines. We feature trusted members, leaders, and allies of our Black and African American communities to share their perspectives and knowledge to empower us to make the decision we feel is best for ourselves and our loved ones. For more information and videos from great conversations that you might have missed, you can check out powertothepoetry.com/courageous conversations. And we'll drop that link in the bio and on Facebook. And so just about Power to the Poetry, if you don't know as well, probably wondering, Power to the Poetry, and we're talking about vaccines, but Power to the Poetry is a performing arts LLC specializing in spoken word poetry. We promote freedom of expression and provide a platform for underrepresented demographics in our community, including but not limited to people of color, LGBTQ+, women, youth, people with different abilities, and etc., raising awareness to social, cultural, political, and personal issues, addressing topics that cultivate crucial and courageous conversations, which is what we're having tonight, empowering our audience to engage in dialogue and action for meaningful change. We are warriors of light on a mission to express, expose, and ignite. And so, tonight we'll be expressing, we'll be exposing, and hopefully we'll be igniting or inspiring some people out there. So super excited. Power to the Poetry is a movement providing a platform for all voices, fostering a climate of culture, diversity, and inclusion. Marginalized groups constantly deal with inequalities such as oppression, discrimination, racism, and prejudice. This is unacceptable. We take responsibility for the disparities in our community by creating opportunities for a positive and necessary change while inspiring others to do the same. So we've got some community guidelines. By being here, you are agreeing to be kind to our speakers, musical guests, and each other. Please mute your mic unless you are talked to or addressed. Put comments and questions in the chat. We would appreciate it. Use your reactions at the bottom of the screen to send lots of love. And then also the best way to watch this is in speaker view. So that's going to be at your top right hand corner. There's a little button that says view, and then you can click it, and then it says speaker, and that's the best way to see this thing. And then also I suggest turning your volume all the way up because you want to hear all this goodness we got today, okay? So a little bit about our guest. Oh my gosh. Sorry, my dog is barking. Please be quiet, Sunny. That's what happens when we work from home. It's okay. Our first guest that we're going to have on today is Naisha Williams. She has over a decade of experience in the public health arena. She's currently the COVID Vaccine Equity Program Manager for King County and Seattle Department of Public Health. Her areas of expertise include behavioral health, epidemiology, and community health. In her current position, she sets up vaccine events called pop ups and information sessions, promoted COVID-19 vaccine outreach campaigns, and coordinated efforts for a variety of programs and work groups. She's also worked closely with the folks on the King County and Seattle Department of Public Health's communications team to make sure the messaging is tailored and culturally appropriate for the diverse communities that they serve. And then our next guest that we are going to have is Candace Jackson, who is a health equity strategist, inspirational and values-based leader, change maker, and visionary. She currently is the founder and chair of the African American Health Board. Their mission is to work with healthcare and policy leaders to demand accountability while increasing access and overall wellness in the community. And then we have Zyna Bakari, and she is the executive assistant and public health organizer for the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. She's passionate and all about grassroots campaigns, database management, volunteer management, and more. The Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle empowers communities of color to thrive by providing economic, educational, and employment services. And then also, she is a spoken word, or I don't know if she's a spoken word poet, but she's a poet and she has her own website. So we'll drop that in the chat. That's pretty cool. And then we have our special musical guest, Quindrey Davis, who is a passionate drummer, composer, educator, and creator extraordinaire. He's played at the Monterey Jazz Festival, the Reno Jazz Festival, and placed first in the district finals for the Guitar Center Drum Off twice. He's also played with celebrated artists like Alan Stone, Alex Kuna, Snarky Puppy, and more. For more information, the latest tracks, and where to follow him, check out his website, which is www.quindrey.com. I'm super excited to have Quindrey on. I went to school with him. He's just so talented. Right now, he's getting his master's for music, which is just super amazing. I'm just so happy, especially to see, Black people out here doing such positive and amazing things. So, Quindrey, you can take it away and start us off with some dope vibes to get it going.
Thank you so much, Bethany. I'm going to play a couple new songs off my album and play some old songs too. All right. This first song here is called it's called Light Energy off my new album called Energy, all composed and all worked by myself. So that song was called Light Energy, off my new album Energy. Thank you guys. I'm gonna play one more and then I'll give it back to Bethany. This song is called Earth, and this song is off my previous album Elements. You can find this on Apple Music everywhere, pretty much that sells music. So yeah.
Dre 808.
Dre, we can't hear you. You're not coming through, but thank you. I don't think you're on mute. Um,
Oh, I think I was
oh,
turned down.
there we go.
My bad. But you can Google my name, Quindrey. You can find all my music there and my website and everything. So
Thank you, Quindre. Appreciate you. He's gonna be closing the show out for us, so keep posted because you definitely want to hear him at the end. Such an amazing talent. Thank you, Quindre.
thank you guys.
So Quindre got the vibes started. All good energy around here. Feeling good. Ready to talk about some vaccines and whatnot. So our first guest that we're gonna have on the show is Naisha Williams. She is absolutely amazing human being, and just talking to her before the show, learning so much that was so inspiring. But she pretty much does everything. But I want you to go ahead. I want you to go ahead and take it away and let the people know about just the wonderful things you're doing in the community and the amazing work you're involved in.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, I'm Naisha Williams. Um, And so Public Health Seattle King County has done a lot in terms of outreach efforts. I also lead the strategic planning for our community vaccination events, otherwise known as pop-ups. And I do want to talk a little bit of how we kind of arrived at that name. So, you know, we've gotten a lot of feedback about the staying power of public health and the investment in the community. And one of the things that one of the faith leaders on our faith-based call stated was, well, why do you call these vaccine events pop-ups? Are you going to just pop in the community and then pop right back out? So from that conversation, we you know, took that back to the drawing board and was like, yeah, you know, we are a part of the community. We don't want to make the community believe that we're just popping in and popping out. And so we want to be as community driven as possible in our outreach and how we go about setting up vaccine clinics, and even with compensating organizations for holding vaccine clinics and for the outreach they've done previously and in the future. So we have been really working on more investment in the communities and also setting up multiple advisory groups, because that is really important. A lot of times when you're working in public health, your lens can be a little clouded, I would say, a little bit removed. I come from a world where everyone has this baseline knowledge. Pretty much everyone has an MPH, and we all talk like we have one to one another. So when it's time for outreach, it's understanding your audience and really taking that time to listen to the needs of the community. Also understanding that there's no one size fits all approach, and that we have to make sure that we're addressing health literacy and tailoring our messages and our efforts to the communities that we're working with. So when we're having community conversations, even when we're discussing the vaccine, it'll go way over people's head if you're not addressing the concerns that community has. So you have to actually listen before you can develop strategy and before you can implement that strategy. And what does that look like? And then also understanding that we're not here to replace the community. We're here to work collaboratively with the community and have all of our efforts community driven. What that looks like with different conversations, again, depends on the communities that we're working with. But when it comes to talking to people who, I was saying earlier in the call, I don't like the term hesitancy, because it kind of places blame on communities for not being vaccinated, when in reality, people need more information or they need more time to make the best decision for them. So the term I landed on, that I didn't coin the term, I heard it from someone else, so I won't take credit for it, but it's vaccine contemplation, because it's something that you really need to think about, and you really need to take the time to think about how getting a vaccine affects you and the loved ones around you. And then it's your body, your choice, right? So for me, I feel like there's never a negative conversation, because even if you approach the conversation being very open-minded, taking the time to learn, even when we're talking to our friends and family, just taking that time to learn about what the concerns are, then we can really address them. For instance, you know, earlier on in COVID, our communications team had all these FAQs that no one could understand. So it would refer to different variants by their like scientific name, and it would be like B.117 variant. And I was like, first of all, no one recognizes that. But all of this information about the variant, when we need to just take a step back and learn what is the community concerns about the variant and what variant strains. And what it turns into is like, folks want to know if the vaccines will protect them. Folks want to know their risk of contracting that variant. So just really rethinking our messaging and making sure we're also considering health literacy, making sure that we have materials translated, and our language access team can translate in 33 languages. And then back to having those conversations with your friends and loved ones. whether it's vaccine shy, hesitancy, reluctancy, whatever you want to name it. Again, there's no bad conversation because every conversation is an opportunity for education. And not just for us to teach others, but for us to learn from others. So taking that in mind, being very open-minded with the approach. So learning why folks aren't interested in being vaccinated, and also being able to provide information and being okay with someone walking away. In public health, it's always like, we need to get people vaccinated, we need to talk to them. And I'm like, but it's okay if someone wants to walk away. I much rather someone take the information that I have provided, think it over, and come to the decision that the vaccine is best for them on their own terms. And so, looking at the projections that we have on our data dashboard, we know that the vaccination rate, well, we're collectively at 70, but for African Americans, it's 56.7. And we are not projected to hit the 70 mark until October. Well, I mean, it sounds a little contradictory to allow folks to have more time, but I say, what is our other option? Would we rather miscalculate our efforts and come off as coercive to communities, and then we never bridge that equity gap? Or do we want to really, really dive deep into community to determine what we need to do better in providing information and having those conversations? And the approach means everything, because if you come with an open mind and just where you want to provide information, what I find is, even when I'm talking to people who are just adamant that they're not going to be vaccinated, they'll still share the information that I provided and send people to me to talk more deeply about the vaccine. So it turns into, I'm not getting vaccinated, but that public health lady knows a lot about it, so go talk to her. That's what I hear when I'm on site at events. So just really, really taking the time, and then being okay with gathering that information. And sometimes it's just the kind of thinking about it, how we approach sex education. It's not one conversation, at least it shouldn't be. It's building upon conversations and answering more questions, and really having the patience to do so. So like the common questions I get is a lot around the vaccine being developed so quickly and mRNA technology, but people really don't want the most scientific discussion on mRNA technology. They really don't want to hear about spike proteins and that type of, information. They want to know, this is relatively new, so is it safe? And that's where I come in, and I will talk about how the development of the vaccine was a global effort, and not only a global effort, but contributions from multiple doctors and key researchers of color, and big contributions of women. One of the little known stories about Caitlin Carrico, a Hungarian biochemist who actually paved the way for the development of mRNA technology. It's really like a little engine that could story that I'll be brief about. But she believed that we could utilize mRNA technology to fight disease, and they told her she was crazy. They actually refused to fund her efforts, and she kind of was a laughingstock for a long period of time. Following that, in the 90s, so mRNA has been around since the 90s, it has been used in HIV research for the past 17 years, also in cancer research. So just giving folks information about, the global efforts and those key researchers, I find is helpful in the conversation. And I place a link to our community vaccination resources page, where we have flyers and a lot of tailored messaging around this information, and also some cool information from Michelle Andrasic from Fred Hutch and her descriptions of mRNA. So just like 1 minute clips to show your family and friends, just to give them the quick rundown versus the more scientific look at it. But just overall, my takeaway, I've been working in the COVID response. What public health Seattle King County since September. But prior to that, I was working in COVID response and higher education in Snohomish County. And so being, Everett was ground zero for Washington State. And it was right around the corner from the institution I worked at. It's something that we have had on our radar and been working since around November, December of 2020. Or excuse me, 2019. So just having the baseline information is helpful. But also having that patience to continue to follow up with information. Most of the time when I have community conversations, I have multiple conversations. We'll have these really, really organic conversations where I'll give folks the education and information that they need so that they can be empowered to make the right decisions for them. And then we'll have follow-up conversations because people have questions and really, really, really want more information. And then they really have personal questions like why, we're for the vaccine, if we're vaccinated, and just wanting to know more about our personal decisions as well, which, I'm happy to share. I'm fully vaccinated with Pfizer. And as a public health person, my reason is actually my children. I had children who contracted COVID back in February of the year before last. My then 3-year-old brought it home from her daycare, and it turned into 5 days hospitalization. And this was during a time when they were saying that kids weren't affected by COVID. So we didn't have the information that we had today, which is why I'm very passionate about educating our community, because there's so much misinformation. And the best way to combat that is by providing accurate and correct information.
Wow. Thank you. And I'm so glad your babies are okay now, right? Yeah, I'm so glad they're okay. I feel like that's definitely a very, very scary experience. Um, so is there any other like questions and concerns that get brought up in the community when you're out here doing this work that are common that you have to answer?
Well, the Delta variant is the number one topic for concern. And, not every vaccine is 100% effective, and a vaccine is not a cure. So we know that the vaccines are roughly 95% effective for severe COVID. But what the vaccines do is they lower the transmission of COVID in the community, and they protect us if we were to come across COVID, if you are fully vaccinated. And so I always say, think of it as just like another arsenal. So it's basically weaponizing your body to fight off COVID, which is really, really important because the hospitalization rates and mortality rates are extremely high, especially in African-American community. And one of the biggest findings that we have from our latest data, so as of July 13th, about 92% of the cases in the past 90 days that were for our hospitalization rates have been from folks who are not vaccinated. So even though we are still seeing breakthrough cases, the majority of the hospitalizations that we've seen in the past 60 days have been as a result from folks who are not vaccinated.
Oh, wow. Um, do you feel like this outreach and effort, especially to the African American community, is being well received?
I think it depends on how we go about outreach. I think it can be overall, my experiences it has been well received, but I've known instances where it hasn't been well received. And I think then it goes back to the mistrust. And it's another area where we have to be really, really honest about. So we have to take responsibility, at least from public health, for the mistrust that the community has, and acknowledging, not even going back to historical trauma, looking back for the past year and a half, Because the reason that we are arrived to where we are now is because of the neglect early on, because we didn't have those supportive systems in place. I often talk about now, there's a large segment of people who are interested in becoming vaccinated that cannot afford to be vaccinated. And folks will look at me and say, but the vaccine is free. And I'm like, free for who? If you have the type of job where you cannot, you do not have PTO, or you have the type of job where you're working on your feet. I mean, fatigue is no longer a minor thing when you're operating a forklift. So we have to think about folks literally not being able to take time off. And I always use the example of Amazon because that pretty much resonates with everyone. I personally have an Amazon addiction. I don't know about you, but so their warehouse, a lot of their warehouse workers are subcontractors. And in terms of scheduling, it's not just about getting the hours, but the more you work, the more priority you get in terms of scheduling. So now, putting myself in their shoes, if I take off for first dose and second dose and I need to take a week off, I lose that priority for scheduling, and I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And now I don't know how I'm going to meet my monthly needs to, sustain my family, and to just simply pay my bills. So what programs are we providing in terms of safety nets and then long-term programs for sustainability? Also looking at that, because it's just really, really, again, important to look at the other factors, the other social, economic, environmental factors that influence the incidence of COVID. So we know that going back to at the beginning of the pandemic, just how folks feel now they can't afford to vaccinate, folks did not feel like they were in a position to take off to prioritize their health. So it turned into, I have a cough, but but it's nothing. Let me just take some Mucinex and some NyQuil and go to work because I can't afford to stay home. So those same issues are still cycling back around and happening concurrently as the pandemic is happening. And we have to really, really step in and think about, mitigation and recovery in communities, because otherwise we're still going to keep seeing these issues. And they're not issues that are only attributed to COVID. So these are issues that were already longstanding in the society. So then we can't turn around and say, well, we didn't invest in your community all this time, but trust me now. You have to take the time to build that trust and be considered and acknowledge that the mistrust and the feelings that African-American community and other communities of color have towards the government. And I mean, when you talk about like taking accountability, that has to be the first step.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Is there any last, comments you'd like to leave with the people?
I say, regardless of your choice to become vaccinated or not, just be safe. So we know we do have these breakthrough cases. So this also goes for folks who are vaccinated. Really, really think about, I'm a huge advocate of mask wearing. I still wear mine, but also judging those situations where you can mitigate your risk by wearing a mask and still safely social distancing. I think we need to be accepting of everyone's choices. And also just make sure that we are preaching safety.
Absolutely. Well, that is Naisha Williams, everyone. We will drop the link to all the resources and everything she was talking about in the chat. Thank you so much. And so now I'd like to welcome our next guest, Candace Jackson. Candace, if you could just let the people know about all your endeavors and the wonderful things that you're doing in the community and just the impact that you're making right now.
Wow, thank you. I would say it's a we thing that we're doing in the community and a we thing around impact. And I'll describe that in a moment here, but I just want to first say, Naisha, I loved so many of the points that you made about like wellness and what that has to look like for us and how we enter the conversation. And you know, that piece around systemic accountability is a big deal, right? While you were talking, I was pulling up the materials that I'm like, man, these are some dope materials. But at the end of the day, a lot of our folks are not going to be looking to Public Health Seattle. Like, folks I know in community are not jumping on our website to be like, oh yeah, I'm an African American, I'm Black, let me find out what Public Health Seattle King County has to say, right? And so much to the piece you mentioned around like really deeply, authentically developing relationship with community. And you can't do that and continue to break community's trust, right? So they've, you know, public health has amazing folks like you on the front lines, and the ethos that you carry needs to travel up, right, to where the policy decisions are being made. So at the health board, I think we're trying to hold two things at once. You know, we, before the pandemic, had a big focus on policy and systems work, knowing that there are great organizations like Zyna's and other, you know, ARTH and plenty of other organizations out there that are doing direct service work with community, and recognized our opportunity to be able to think through policy and systems impacts with those folks as our partners. And so at the health board, we have been thinking through, man, like if we are heading into a pandemic, like we need to shift some things up, and start talking about the things that matter around health in our community. So our health board is made up of, you know, I would say wellness from a broad spectrum, but we've got, you know, healthcare providers, we've got folks in other institutions doing equity work with their institutions. We've got community members who are out, you know, doing art things and being in community, organizing. So all sorts of folks from all sorts of sectors and backgrounds come together at the beginning of the pandemic to say what should be happening differently. Early on in the pandemic, y'all should know that the health board is part of a coalition of health boards who got together and said, you know, like this is just isn't happening right, and made some asks around policy. One of the things that we asked to have changed is the way the relationships are going, right? And who's sitting in the decision-making spaces, and how are those people resourced sustainably to be part of those decision-making spaces, right? Because I know all of us Black folks in this space definitely wear like 5 hats. We got our day job, we got two night jobs, some community things, and then some things that give us life, right? So really thinking through like, what does that relational component look like, and how do we support sustainability so that people can actually be in those conversations informing what's right. One of the things that we started to realize really early on, to your point, Naisha, is like our lives are not siloed in the same ways that these governments operate, or any of these systems, our healthcare systems included. We don't like think about our health in one lane and then think about food in another lane and then think about, you know, our baby's education in another lane. That's all very fluid for us. And so we thought about what it might take to do something that brings that fluidity together for people, and didn't make this actually just about COVID, because the reality is it's not just about COVID. These are long-standing structural inequities, structural like racism built into our systems that need to be undone. COVID is just yet one more opportunity that our systems really have not done the work to deconstruct that, right? It presented itself. I think there were some folks like Naisha on the front lines doing some amazing work, but structurally, things really haven't changed much. And so we wanted to be able to do both and have both an opportunity for community to look at and understand systems and structures, and receive care right then and there in a way that was that met folks where they're at and was fun. Because like, let's be honest, this last year and something has been stressful. Lyte, I heard you talk about mental health stuff, and I would say for our community, it's really, really rough right now. Particularly those of us who are out organizing and doing cultural work, right? It is really, really rough. I think energetically we're taking on a lot, and the resources just aren't there. So we were like, man, let's have fun. Like, can we do something that's just fun? So we've actually, you know, as we start to think about wellness in our community, when we ask that question of community at some of our events and, you know, throughout the history of the health board, like us being together is actually the most fundamental component of our wellness, right? And that came out from like early grounding reports before COVID even happened, and then it was amplified. So we developed opportunities both online at first when we couldn't be in person, and most recently around what we're calling soul clinics, which are basically opportunities, like you can think about it like, you know, a block party or like your backyard party where there's like food and games and art and music, and really geared towards the things that we like to do and want to be doing together in community, but to do it in a way that is COVID safe, right? So thinking about the fact that almost every family I know has vaccinated and unvaccinated people. So are you going to leave some of your people at the house to go to an event? No, we're going to design an event that's tailored for you to bring your family to it and provide those COVID safe opportunities. Opportunity for you to ask questions if you want to ask questions, doctors there to answer those questions, or to have a conversation with you, folks to talk to you about stuff that has nothing to do with COVID. We have, you know, a partner that's bringing in healers and wellness workers. So if you need a massage because you're just tense and you've been at the computer all week, come get a free massage, right? We had Reiki, we had meditation, we had healing arts there. So really trying to think through what's going to feed the soul of our community, and how do we do it in a way that enriches people. And, you know, at the same time, we're also asking questions. We're asking questions about what wellness looks like. We're asking questions about the conversations that people want to have with their healthcare provider. We're asking people what they think in the Black community health equity looks like. So, you know, that has created a lot of imaginative space for us. It's also led to some work around how we're thinking about shaping policy decisions. We're getting ready to embark on a messaging. You know, one of my biggest gripes with the way that things have rolled out from a communication standpoint has just been confusing, and our community has not been prioritized. So, right, equity is you prioritize that, you prioritize the people who haven't been prioritized, and that's not how the information was rolled out. Right, the information was rolled out in white spaces first. You know, so thinking through some of those things, and as a health board and community wanting to do things really differently means intentionally building relationships in our own community to make sure those things come together. And as we're thinking about information dissemination, you know, how do we have a coordinated strategy? That statistic that you threw out, Naisha, I tell people that all the time. Like we're at 70%. I was like, ooh, we are not at 70%. I don't know who y'all kick it with, but like my crowd that I kick it with is not at 70%. So now what does that mean? That means public policy around, you know, when we're opening, not wearing masks, all that public policy was not decided based on the people who basically are most at risk. And that would have been equity, right? Who's most at risk? Let's make the policy decisions based on those folks. So we're bringing people into the conversation around policy and advocacy, leveraging this as an opportunity to do that too, to really have community begin to shape what our healthcare system looks like more broadly. So for us, this is about vaccines and COVID, but it's also more about wellness, and the things that we need to be not just all right, but like really, really happy and excited and thrilled and fulfilled in our lives. And that means bringing a lot of pieces together at once.
Absolutely. I want to know when one of these next soul block parties are because I'm trying
I
to pull
got you.
up.
I got you. I got you. I got you.
Definitely trying to pull up, and I really appreciate you hitting on the fact that this is bigger than just COVID, and it is about overall wellness. And I agree with that 100%. And so I just kind of want to know what are some of the other things that you are working on outside of just, you know, information about COVID and the vaccine, because it is bigger than that. And we need to create an environment, just really, you know, create an environment of wellness and health overall for our community so that we can thrive.
Yeah. So a couple of things that I think are really important. Um, One is like literally trying to redesign our healthcare system. I know that sounds like big and abstract, but like literally we mean that. And I want to give big ups to the Tubman Center for Health and Freedom. They are doing some really amazing work. They're partners of ours. We're going to support everything they have to do. But they're basically going to open up a clinic that is run by Black folks and centering BIPOC folks. And we're working with them to think about that redesign. Like, how are the clinical services going to be designed? Like, where are people going to receive which clinical services? Like, we want to do something that's so outside of the box with them. And when I say outside of the box, I mean outside of white folks' box, like outside of the traditional racist normative systems that have been built up. So we're imagining, and we're getting to a really creative space with community to think about what that looks like, and take our time to design it. Like, we'll be under nobody's pressure. It's all on community timeline. So that's something that's really exciting for me. If y'all haven't checked them out, check them out. If you know somebody with money, send it their way. They're like, we getting this thing off the ground. But the thing I love actually about what Tubman is doing and the work that we're collaborating on together is there's a lot of time set aside for community co-design, and really thinking through how we pull partners into the space, that it's not just a small group of Black folks who's like making decisions about whatever, but really intentionally building relationships across Black movement spaces, so that we can be aligned, right? We might not all have the same analysis. We might not all agree on the exact same things, but like, we're creating some synergy and alignment. So that feels important. The other thing I would say we're doing is on the policy front. We're thinking about some really important ways to create accountability for our healthcare systems. We've been collecting some digital stories along with the coalition of health boards. So some other health boards are involved with us as well. And trying to think through, like, we want to collect our own stories, and then have those stories actually inform policy and legislation. So we're talking to legislators about, what are some of those structural components that need to change? How do we create transparency around how our systems function? How do we create accountability, and what does that look like? How does community have a say-so in programming, and where dollars flow, right? There's so many amazing solutions in community that just aren't funded, and folks being expected to do cultural work, which I think is health work, to educate folks, which is health work, to actually provide health services at an underpaid rate. So all of those things we're thinking about and trying to shine a light on, through the conversations we're having and some of the advocacy work we're doing.
That's amazing. Candace, is there any last comments you'd like to leave with the people and just let manifest and marinate?
Yes. I would say, just to ring true to the topic of discussion about having that COVID conversation, I would say, if you're somebody who's in your family who's like has some angst about people not getting vaccinated, the thing that I have seen be most effective in community, when you talk to people who like took forever to get vaccinated and finally got vaccinated, first of all, I just want to honor Naisha. What you pointed out about workplace employment practices is a big dang deal. And so that to me is a public health issue. Like, our employers and our health departments need to have a discussion, because that's a big deal. The other piece I would say is that, though, what's gotten people vaccinated is like somebody's auntie was like, or somebody told their auntie, like, I love you, I care about you, please, please, like literally just begging people, because I love you, I want you to get vaccinated. I know you might not understand it, but I care about you. And relaying that sense of love and concern, I think, is just primary. And if folks aren't trying to get vaccinated, I also think it's important not to be pushing in that direction. I think it's important to have a different conversation about, well, where is risk showing up in your life? And really keyly worded, like, not what risks are you taking? Because we don't often have an option about the risks that we take as Black folks. There's sometimes we do, but like, there are a lot of spaces and places, just the way our life, our community, our history is set up, we don't have those options, to not be at risk. So having the conversation about where is risk showing up in your life and how can I help you be safer? I care about you. I love you. I want you to be safer. And then also like check on people on some other stuff, like check on people's mental health, invite folks over to the backyard barbecue to kick it, do the fun things, love up on people. So that's what I would say.
Yes, love, really. Love is the key to unlock peace. Candace Jackson, everyone. And now I'd like to bring in our final guest, Zyna Bakari. Zyna, let us know what you got popping over there at the Urban League.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so inspired. What an amazing panel. So yeah, at the Urban League, right now, I think our biggest focus is how do we make the moment a movement? There's all this concern right now about Black health, about our health, investment, dollars being thrown at our organization, all that. And so then keeping the conversation going, being like a squeaky wheel at the table that's like, okay, our life matters even when we're not in a pandemic. And what are you going to do like every day? Even once we're past this, like, don't make it be like politicians that come into our communities and say they care, they're going to listen to our needs, and then you don't see them for 2 years or 4 years or whatever the case may be. Like, this is a moment to hold people accountable. So I'm really excited about that and being that person in the community that's like, okay, but after this, I better see you around too. And so that's something I've been excited about. And then another thing is like creating, like Naisha and Candace both already said, like creating these amazing events for community. I am passionate about pop-up clinics because I believe in the long-term impact of pop-up clinics, of community events. I believe that if they have the potential to either reinforce negative associations with healthcare or create brand new associations with healthcare. And so I feel so passionate and like protective over our clinics and designing them in such a way where it's like, I want it to be like you come to this clinic, you get to meet Black health professionals who aren't there administering the shots, but are just there talking to you, taking their time with you. And then you're like, oh, I didn't know there was someone like you that I could like establish care with. This is really cool. And then maybe tomorrow you're going to go and call a doctor and establish care and start thinking about preventative care, which could be really cool, especially if you come from like, our community in general tend to not do as much preventative care or not go get healthcare until it's too late, then we'll go to the ER. But this is such an opportunity to build and repair relationships around healthcare so that we can move forward in a different and positive direction. So yeah, our events are really fun too. At a recent one, it was vaccine night out for youth and families. We had a caricaturist, ring toss, like what else did we have? Connect Four, cornhole, and then like swag, music, raffle. This kid got an iPad and he cried and it was beautiful. And like, I think something that I love in using these clinics too is it's an opportunity to care for our community and love on our community, like you said, Candace. And we've all had a hard year. And I just want to be at these clinics like, I care about you. We care about your life. Like it's, and celebrating, if someone gets vaccinated, like I want to celebrate that one person and hear like, what brought you here? Like what, like you did that, you know, I'm so proud of you. And like a lot of people who come to our clinics are really nervous at first. And instead of just like jab, shot, like just do the vaccine, it's like, take your time and be like, how are you doing? Take a moment with them. And they might be like, I'm really nervous. And then it's like, what are you here for? Like, what brought you here? And then I might hear stories like, well, I want to see my 90-year-old grandpa, or I have family that's in another country and they don't have access to vaccines and they're telling me how lucky I am and all this stuff. And then you reconnect them with their why. And that's like a really powerful experience for people and just an opportunity to care and focus on that community care where it's like, I care about you outside of this pandemic. We care about, like you both said already, your mental health. We care about, we care about your mental health. We care about our safe neighborhoods. We care about access to food. Like all of that good stuff. What else are I made some notes here. I'll try and be fast. Oh yeah, another thing that's really great is connecting with health professionals at these clinics so that then we can make direct referrals to people. Like someone called me the other day. Don't know how they got their number, but I'm so glad they did. And they were like so upset because their employer, they work in the food service industry. Their employer was kind of like telling everyone they had to get vaccinated by X date. And she was on the fence. She wasn't like 100% no, but she wasn't ready yet. She was contemplating, like Naisha said, and she felt like her decision was getting rushed, and that like sort of autonomy and that the empowerment of making a choice was being rushed. And I was able to answer a lot of her questions, and then I was able to say, like, there's this dope doctor that I know really well. I think you'd like him. His name is Dr. Abdul at Dunia Clinic. He's over in Skyway. Like, I was able to make this connection. And then she was like, oh, that sounds great. She went. And then next thing you know, her other coworkers are calling me too, that were in the same position at the same restaurant. And then the other day, like, and again, when it comes to celebrating that one person, the other day I went to a health clinic, a small private practice where they were closed. It was a Saturday, they were closed. But I asked if we could use their space to administer dose 2 of Pfizer, if he would administer dose 2 of Pfizer. And because we needed a space, we needed it quickly. So he opened up his clinic for 3 people to get their second dose of Pfizer. And then 2 of them ended up not being able to come, they rescheduled. So it ended up being 1 person getting their second dose of Pfizer. And he brought his mom, who was very hesitant, scared. Is it safe? Like really, really nervous. What are these side effects gonna be like? All of that. And then it was the 4 of us, me, the doctor, the man who got his second dose of Pfizer, and his mom. And we were all in a room, we were all in the room together. And we just talked for like 45 minutes, just us. And then she got her shot. And then she was like, oh, I'm going to get my other son to do it. I'm going to get my brother to do it. Next thing you know, she's like ready to be a credible messenger in the community. And I think that moment shared with one person matters so much. Take your time. Quality over quantity. Like every person, and when I say quality, I mean a quality experience. Because if one person has a quality experience, and they feel empowered, like I made that choice for me, then they're going to tell someone, they're going to tell someone else. And my phone blows up because they're like, oh, so-and-so told me to call you. Uber drivers, I'll be like, at the beginning of an Uber drive, I'm going to a vaccine clinic, and they're like, oh, you're going to a vaccine clinic? Like, I'm pretty sure like people who walk around with a vaccine have someone said, like, you know that you have a microchip inside, you're all walking around with a microchip in you, and like all this stuff. And then so it'll be like at the beginning so hesitant. 20 minutes later, once we get to Tequila, they're like, actually, can you sign me up? So I get on my phone, make them an appointment. Next thing you know, it's like their cousin's calling me, their brother's calling me. And so I just see the impact of one quality conversation where someone feels like you really care about them and you really see them, goes such a long way. So I just never want anyone who's talking to a vaccine shy loved one to give up or feel like it doesn't matter, because it really does. And I say all the time, I'm like, look, someone's getting vaccinated. It's, one person in our observation area, there's like 15 chairs. And I'm like, look, that person is literally saving lives right now. That's wild. Like literally saving lives, and just like celebrating, jumping around. And this is such a great opportunity. We're in such a great moment to really just connect with each other and with our communities, listen to our communities. We all know what we want to get rid of, these systems that are terrible and all this stuff. We know what our strong, like, no, make that go away is. And this is a great opportunity to think about, what do we want to build? What is our yes? What do we want to move toward? And it's such an opportunity for, I think, Candace, you said imagination. There's a lot of imagination there, or something like that. This is an opportunity for all of us to be visionaries and be like, what can this look like? Because obviously, what just happened? That didn't work. That did not work. So what can we all build together? We're all here in community together. We're all talking, having deeper personal, I'm having such personal, amazing, like intimate, beautiful, inspiring conversations with people. And this vaccine is opening up room for that. Even if that person's totally not going to get the vaccine, it opened up space for us to have a beautiful conversation that's going to contribute to our community's health overall. And so, yeah, I think any closing words I would say is Black joy matters, celebration matters, creating space to celebrate our lives, our health, each other. The vaccine is something to celebrate too. And so really creating space for joy. Take your time. And there's momentum right now. Keep the energy going. These conversations we're having right now are unique. This is a really cool moment. And I hope that we all keep getting together like this and talking and realizing that health and community health is tied into every area of our life, like education, employment, generational wealth, housing, like all health, all of this is connected. And we all need to be working together too. And so another great thing, and then I'll stop. I love the partnerships that are developing out of this work. We're not working in silos anymore. Like we're all together. I know so many people now, and I'm like, what? We don't like we are all out here, and now we're coming together, and everyone has something so different and unique to offer, and it's just beautiful to be like, just part of something so much bigger than just this moment. So yeah, I am so this is a crazy wild time, but there's a lot of positive that can come out of this moment if we all keep doing what we're doing.
Yes, what a time to be alive,
Oof.
to leave legacies, to be visionaries. Absolutely. Zyna, Bakari, everyone. We are better together. Less eulogies, more unity, world peace. That's what it's all about. So to cap off the night, we're gonna have Quindrey Javis come back with us and send us out with some more vibes because it's all about the vibes. Quindrey, you can take it away.
Thank you. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah,
Cool,
we can
cool.
hear.
This next song is called I think it's Afro beat here. Just a little bit of influence from the motherland. So all this music that you heard tonight was composed by myself, and you can find me by just Googling Quindrey. You can find all my music. All right, here we go.
Dre 808. Dre 808.
Dre 808 or Quindrey Davis killing it on the drums. Oh my goodness. That boy can go. Thank you so much.
Thank
Huge
you.
shout out to Quindrey Davis. His website's in the chat. Thank you to all of my speakers, Naisha Williams, Candace Jackson, Zyna Bakari. Appreciate all of you. Absolutely amazing Black Queens, super sheroes. Thank you for all that you're doing. And yes, this is a collective movement. It's not just one person. It takes all of us. It takes a community. Community unity. Let's go. Thank you all. This has been Courageous Conversations. Check us out next week for our 5th and final installment of the Courageous Conversation series, COVID-19 vaccine. We'll be dropping the website if you want to learn more in the chat. This has just been a beautiful night. I just appreciate everyone. And I'm going to leave y'all with this, and then we're out of here. But I'm tremendously grateful, so I always say thank you. Absolutely appreciative. Just know that I'm thankful for all the blessings this universe provided. I look toward the future, never short-sighted. Embrace opportunities, never indecisive, never undecided, because no task is too giant. What we focus on expands. So for me, I choose to focus on statements of I am, I can, I will, I do, I want, I love, because our thoughts become things. So I believe in my dreams. I have control over my own reality, enjoying the positive energies of those who share my same mentality. Good vibrations is what I choose to surround me. So thank you all for the good vibrations. It's the good vibes all day, every day. Power of the poetry, words of light. Peace.